When the lawyer read my mother's will and left me nothing but a dusty keepsake box, I stayed silent. But then I reached into my bag and handed him the real will, one she had locked away, one no one expected. And just like that, the inheritance changed in minutes. Hi, I'm Jenna. I'm the daughter they tried to erase, the one who stayed quiet, until I didn't. Why did my mom hide a second will? What did it say about me? And what happened when I finally stood up in front of my family and told the truth? Before we dive into the story, let me learn a bit about you. If you're a charming lady, please leave the number 1 in the comments. And if you're a dashing gentleman, leave the number 2. This way, I can send you a special greeting. Now, let's start the story together. They always said Dylan was the golden boy. Maybe it started with his high school football trophies or the way Mom bragged about his college internships. I used to roll my eyes when relatives called him destined, but I didn't realize Mom had made it official until the will. The envelope came on a Tuesday. I was still sipping cold jasmine tea, trying to ignore the emptiness of my apartment when I saw the lawyer's name printed neatly on the corner. Joseph Linwood, attorney at law. My stomach turned before I even opened it. The estate hearing was scheduled for Friday. Just a few weeks after the funeral, which had already drained whatever was left of my emotional reserves, I hadn't even unpacked my suitcase from Charleston. Now I had to go back. It was still sticky hot when I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home. Spanish moss dangled from the oaks like old secrets. The porch looked smaller than I remembered. As I stepped inside, the air smelled faintly of wood polish and something sweeter, cherry pie. I followed the scent into the kitchen. The pie sat cooling on the counter, neatly sliced. No one was in the room. I stared at it for a moment. It was Mom's favorite. She used to make one every 4th of July, humming along to Fleetwood Mac. I touched the edge of the counter but didn't take a slice. Dinner was quiet. Russell, my father, asked me how work was. I said it was fine. Dylan talked about his promotion, his new condo in Atlanta, his golf swing. I nodded when I had to. No one mentioned Mom. No one asked how I was holding up. It was like her absence had been neatly boxed and shelved, something too messy to unpack at the table. Afterward, I wandered the hallway alone. The family photo wall was still there. Baby pictures, Christmas cards, prom shots. But my college graduation photo, the one with Mom hugging me in the wind, was gone. I stared at the spot where it had hung for years, a faint rectangle of cleaner paint still outlining the frame. Probably fell, Dylan said from behind me. Or maybe Mom switched it out last year. You know she liked rotating those. He said it casually, sipping from a glass of ice water. I didn't respond. The silence stretched between us like a frayed rope. That night, we gathered in the same parlor where Mom once made us practice piano. Joseph Linwood sat by the fireplace, flipping through folders. His suit was too warm for the room, his forehead damp despite the fan overhead. My father stood with his arms crossed. Dylan lounged on the couch like he was expecting applause. "Corinne Walker's last will and testament," Joseph began. His voice was smooth, clinical. I held my breath. He read clauses about debts, assets, funeral arrangements. Then he cleared his throat. "To Dylan Walker, son, I leave the entirety of the Charleston property, personal savings, and associated assets." I blinked. "To Jenna Walker," he continued, "my daughter, I leave the keepsake box located in the upstairs linen closet, and my love always." That was it. My chest tightened. I didn't speak. My mouth opened slightly, then closed. My father didn't look at me. Dylan tilted his glass as if toasting some silent victory. Joseph handed me a slim, cream-colored envelope. Inside was a small note and a list of items in the keepsake box. Letters, a locket, a dried bouquet. My name was written in Mom's cursive on the back. I didn't remember walking out. But suddenly, I was standing on the courthouse steps, warm air brushing against my skin, the hum of late summer cicadas surrounding me. Calvin, my grandfather, approached quietly. His hands were steady despite his age. He slipped a folded paper into mine without a word. "This isn't what your mother wanted," he said gently. Come by tomorrow." Then he walked away, slow and firm, leaving me there with nothing but the paper in my hand and the weight of something unspoken pressing hard against my ribs. The note from Grandpa was short, just an address, and one sentence: "Ask for the key." I sat in my car outside Calvin's townhouse for a minute before going in. The neighborhood was quiet, shaded by maples just starting to turn at the tips. His porch light was already on, even though the sun hadn't quite set. I remembered Mom used to tease him about that. "You light the porch like a lighthouse," she'd say. He opened the door before I knocked. "I figured you'd come early," he said. Inside, everything was as I remembered. Wooden floors polished to a warm sheen, yellow lamps glowing softly, and clocks, so many clocks, ticking in quiet sync, the kind of silence that had gravity. Calvin motioned to the kitchen table. "Sit, I'll get it." He returned with a small brass key, curved and old. He placed it gently on a folded cloth napkin like it was something sacred. "Your mother gave it to me last spring," he said. "Told me to hold on to it. Said if something ever didn't feel right, you'd know." My fingers closed around it. It was cool, with just enough weight to feel intentional. "She was struggling, Jenna," he added. "Not just with the illness, with decisions, with pressure. I think she wanted more time to make things right." I didn't ask what he meant. I already knew. I'd seen it in her eyes those last few months. The way she'd hesitated before speaking, the way she hugged me tighter when no one was looking. I left before it got too late. Back at the house, the lock clicked like a whisper when I turned the key. Mom's room still smelled faintly like lavender and rose lotion. I stepped lightly across the floor, the wood creaking just once beneath my heel. The vanity drawer was at the bottom right, the one she always kept locked, the one I never touched. She used to joke, "A woman should have one drawer in the world no one else opens." Inside, neatly arranged and tucked into a velvet-lined tray, was a butterfly hair clip I'd given her in elementary school. Purple enamel with tiny rhinestones chipped. Now. She had worn it once, at a spring recital, and never threw it away. Next to it sat a sealed envelope with my name, and underneath a neatly folded sheet of cream paper. My heart thudded as I opened the envelope first. The letter began in Mom's handwriting. "My dearest Jenna, if you are reading this, it means something went wrong. And for that, I am deeply sorry." I tried. I tried to balance loyalty with truth, appearances with honesty. I failed you in ways I can never undo. She wrote about the family, about Dylan, about the image she thought she had to uphold, how she had felt pulled in too many directions and had made a choice she regretted the moment she signed the will everyone else heard read aloud. But she hadn't stopped there. In the folded sheet below, stamped and witnessed, was a second will, dated 3 months after the first. It split the estate evenly between Dylan and me. But more than that, it gave me the house. The house she knew I loved. The house I returned to when things fell apart. The house that held the ghost of her humming in the kitchen and that pie cooling on the counter. I sank to the edge of her bed, the letter trembling in my hands. Outside, a neighbor's porch light flickered on. Inside, the silence felt like breath held too long. The paper smelled faintly of lavender. I held it to my chest for a moment and closed my eyes. There was a sadness in her words, but also something stronger, a reaching, a reckoning. Maybe it wasn't perfect. Maybe it was too late. But it was something. Later that night, I sat on my apartment couch with the documents spread out before me. Gina called just after 10. "You okay?" she asked. I hesitated. "I found something." "What kind of something?" "A will, another one, and a letter." There was a pause. Then quietly, "Jenna, I'm going to fight this," I said. My voice felt clearer than it had in weeks. Not for money, for her, for me. I used to think justice would feel like fireworks. Turns out it feels like rosemary in the sun. The pot sat beside me on the rooftop ledge, its green sprigs reaching toward the breeze. I had planted it the week I moved in. The soil was still loose and dark. I watered it in the mornings gently like Mom used to. Her voice echoed in my memory. Rosemary brings clarity, even when the world doesn't. It was late October now. The paperwork was finalized, the settlement signed. Dylan hadn't responded, not to my lawyer, not to my email, not even to Calvin. Russell had gone quiet too. No letters, no holiday invitations, just silence, like a wall that neither of us wanted to tear down. And yet, I wasn't waiting anymore. Vanessa had texted that morning. Panel confirmed. You're speaking next month. I stared at the message for a long time. I wasn't sure what I would say, only that I wouldn't mention their names. Instead, I would talk about silence, about being erased, and about choosing to step forward anyway. That afternoon, a letter arrived from Joseph Linwood. Inside was a small envelope, cream-colored and handwritten. The note had been tucked in the back of Mom's files. He almost missed it. It read, Jenna. If love was quiet, I didn't always know how to express it, but I hope you felt it. Take care of the garden. It always blooms for the patient. I ran my fingers along the paper's edge. The handwriting was rushed in parts, like she had written it between fatigue and forgetfulness. But it was hers. I didn't cry. Not then. I just sat for a long while, reading it again and again, until the sky began to shift into soft oranges. Later, Gina stopped by for brunch. She brought pumpkin bread and 2 thermoses of coffee. We sat on folding chairs, legs tucked up beneath us, looking over the city rooftops. They're still watching your story online, she said. That panel, you'll be incredible. I'm not trying to be anything, I said quietly. I just want the noise to stop, or at least not echo in me anymore. She smiled, tearing a piece of bread. Then that's what makes it powerful. We didn't talk about Dylan, or Russell, or what the neighbors might think. We just ate in peace, letting the wind pass over us. When she left, I stayed out on the rooftop. I pulled up an old album on my phone, photos from childhood, birthdays, graduations. I paused on one, the whole family at the beach. Everyone was smiling, but I remembered how I'd taken the photo, not been in it, forgotten even then. I deleted it. Then I opened my camera and snapped a new picture. The rosemary pot in the sunlight, Charleston in the distance, and my legs tucked beneath me, socks mismatched. I posted it with one caption, "This is enough." The air shifted, not dramatically, just a slight cooling, like the start of something kinder. My phone buzzed. Gina, I'm proud of you. You've rewritten your part in the story. I typed my reply slowly, then hit send. Me, still scared, but finally free. Vanessa looked up from the document and said, if this is real, it's not just favoritism, it's erasure. I sat across from her desk, the second will in Mom's letter laid out between us like fragile evidence. Her office smelled faintly of citrus and dry paper. The walls were lined with degrees and muted artwork, and a clock ticked steadily above the door, neither rushed nor indulgent, just measured, like Vanessa herself. She picked up the paper again, scanning the signature and notary stamp. You're sure she left it in a locked drawer? I nodded. And no one else knew? No one but my grandfather. She gave him the key. Vanessa leaned back slightly, her eyes sharp. Then it's not a question of whether this will hold weight. It's a question of whether you're ready for what it means to use it. I didn't answer right away. The leather chair beneath me creaked when I shifted. My fingers touched the corner of the letter again, tracing Mom's handwriting. At the hospital, weeks before she passed, she'd taken my hand and said in a whisper so soft I almost missed it, "Don't let silence win." I hadn't known what she meant then. I did now. Vanessa turned to her computer and began typing. I'll prepare a motion to petition the court. If this second will is authenticated, the estate hearing can be reopened. It won't be easy, but it will be legal. Her voice was calm, assured, like she had built a life around helping people who reached for something just out of view. I left her office just after 3 p.m. The light outside was heavy with late summer heat, the sidewalk still radiating warmth. My phone buzzed in my bag. A notification. Dylan. He had posted a new status. Some people will sell out their own blood for attention, hope the price is worth it. No name, no mention. But it didn't need one. The comments were already rolling in. Family over everything. Can't believe someone would stoop that low. Some daughters don't deserve mothers. I turned off my screen. My hands trembled just enough to fumble the keys when I got to my apartment door. Inside, it was dim. The curtains were still drawn from the night before. The coffee mug on the counter was half full, cold. I didn't bother turning on the lights. Later, I opened my laptop to check email, one from Russell. Subject line, "We need to talk." I clicked. "Jenna, your mother's passing has been hard on all of us. But what you're doing now is wrong. You're dragging her memory through the mud. This legal vandalism, because that's what it is hurting the family. If you proceed, don't expect forgiveness or inclusion going forward." I stared at the message for a long time. I thought about replying, thought about explaining that I wasn't doing this for revenge, that I wasn't trying to split the family only to correct something Mom had wanted. But I knew he wouldn't hear it. Instead, I closed the laptop and sat on the couch, Mom's letter beside me. The line that kept echoing was simple. "I hope you felt it." I did, and I still did. Even in the mess. Even now. I thought about going public, posting the letter, the second will, letting people see the truth for themselves. But something about that felt hollow, like shouting into a room full of people already facing the wrong way. Instead, I picked up my phone and called Vanessa. "Let's do it," I said. "File the motion." There was a pause on the other end, then her voice, firm, steady. "I'll submit it first thing tomorrow morning." After we hung up, I stayed by the window, watching the traffic down below. People going home, walking dogs, picking up dinner. The world kept spinning like it didn't care who lost what in a courtroom. I unfolded Mom's letter again. My eyes caught the last line. "If you're reading this, you've already done the hardest part, facing them." I folded it back carefully and placed it on the shelf above the radiator, next to a photo of her in the garden, smiling with dirt on her hands and wind in her hair. Outside, the sky turned a pale lavender, and for a moment, I let myself believe the hardest part might truly be over. I wasn't just showing up to defend myself. I was showing up to remind them that Mom's voice hadn't died with her. The Charleston County Courthouse looked like it always had, weathered brick, wide front steps, an American flag lifting just slightly in the breeze. But it felt different today, like it knew something was about to shift. Inside, the air conditioning hummed faintly, but the humidity still clung to the back of my neck. I sat at the long table to the left beside Vanessa, whose calm presence felt like a silent metronome. She had her legal pad out, one hand folded over the file containing the second will. Across from us, Dylan leaned back in his chair, wearing a tailored navy suit and a smug half-smile. His hair looked freshly cut. His shoes were polished. He winked at someone behind us before crossing his legs. Russell sat beside him, stone-faced, arms folded, tapping one finger slowly against the wood of the bench. And then there was Calvin, a few rows back, silent still, his gaze never leaving mine. The bailiff called the hearing to order. Joseph Linwood stood, clearing his throat, and began reading the original will, again. To Dylan Walker, my son, I leave the Charleston property, personal savings, and associated holdings. There it was, the line that had broken me once already, but this time I didn't flinch. To Jenna Walker, my daughter, I leave the keepsake box in the linen closet and my love always. A pause. The courtroom was quiet except for the soft whir of the ceiling fans. Then Vanessa stood. "Your Honor," she said evenly, "we have a legally witnessed amendment from the deceased, dated 3 months after the original will. We request that it be entered into record for verification and review." Joseph's head turned slowly. Dylan uncrossed his legs. Russell muttered something under his breath. The judge, a middle-aged man with tired eyes and a plain black robe, gestured toward Vanessa. "Please submit the document." She handed it over. Joseph took it reluctantly, his eyes scanning the page. I watched his face shift. His fingers paused over the notary's seal, then moved again, slowly, mechanically, like he was trying not to react too soon. After a few long moments, Joseph spoke. "The signature matches. The date is valid. Witnessed and notarized." The judge nodded. "We will take a short recess to assess the validity and determine next steps." Dylan slammed his folder shut. Russell leaned toward me across the aisle. "Is this really who you are now?" he whispered. "Dragging your mother's name through the mud for a bigger slice of the pie?" I didn't answer, just stared at the table in front of me, hands folded in my lap. My coat sleeves were damp with sweat, but I didn't move to take it off. The pressure kept me steady. "She was confused," he added. "Sick, vulnerable." "She was lucid when she signed that," Vanessa said from beside me. Her voice didn't rise. "You know it." Dylan stood, pacing a few feet. His leg bounced as he turned, mouth tight. He looked like a man losing control, trying to find a crack in the room where he could pour his charm and let it fix everything. There was no crack today. 20 minutes later, the judge returned. Everyone stood. "The court has reviewed the document presented by Ms. Gale," he began. "The amended will is legally valid. As such, the estate will be considered contested. Distribution will be paused pending final review and reallocation per the revised terms." The words echoed in my ears. Not victory, not closure, but recognition, legitimacy. Behind me, Calvin shifted slightly, a breath escaping him. Vanessa touched my wrist just once. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just exhaled. We gathered our papers and stood to leave. As we stepped into the hallway, Russell brushed past me. His voice was low, sharp, slicing through the buzz of conversation around us. "You've made your choice," he said. "Don't expect forgiveness at Christmas, or ever." I turned toward him, met his eyes, and said nothing, because forgiveness had never been mine to ask for in the first place. The courtroom had gone quiet. My inbox didn't. By the time I got home, there were over 60 unread emails. My phone buzzed nonstop. Group chats I hadn't opened in years, social media notifications, message requests from people I barely remembered. The screen lit up in waves like a silent alarm I couldn't turn off. I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter beside a mug of jasmine tea I'd made the night before and forgotten to drink. It was cold now, a little bitter. Dylan had posted an hour after the hearing ended. No names. Just, "Funny how some people will twist grief into greed. Stay tuned." Comments poured in. "He deserves better." "Can't believe she'd do that to her own family." "People change when money's on the table." I didn't respond. I just watched the screen as the comments scrolled, detached, like they were talking about someone else, some other sister. I checked my email again. One message stood out. Russell. "Jenna, you've chosen to embarrass this family in the most public way possible. I tried to raise you with grace. Clearly I failed. Your mother wouldn't have wanted this spectacle." I stared at that last sentence for a long time. I made toast, not because I was hungry, but because the act of doing something ordinary felt like survival. I buttered it too quickly, tore the bread, still ate it. By noon, the messages shifted. Some were quieter. A cousin from Michigan I hadn't spoken to since Mom's 60th birthday messaged, "I don't know the full story, but I'm thinking of you." Another wrote, "Wish I'd had the courage to stand up for myself years ago." Then Gina showed up. She didn't knock, just walked in with a bottle of wine and a paper bag of croissants. "Put the phone down," she said, setting the bag on the counter. "We're doing carbs and clarity." I sat on the couch while she poured 2 glasses. She handed me one, then kicked off her shoes and curled her legs under her like she had 100 times before. "You okay?" she asked gently. "I think so." I said. "I just didn't expect the noise to get this loud." "That's what happens when the quiet girl finally speaks up." I gave a faint laugh, but it faded quickly. "He's painting me as the villain." Gina took a long sip. "You didn't ruin anything. They just got caught. You held up a mirror and they flinched." The warmth of the wine helped. So did her presence. That evening, I opened Facebook. The cursor blinked on a blank post. For once, I didn't overthink it. Since it seems necessary to tell the whole story, let me set the record straight. I wrote it plainly. No anger, no names, just the facts. I was left out of the will. I found a second one. I followed what was legal and right. I loved my mother, and I would never apologize for defending what she asked me to protect. I attached the letter, just the last paragraph. If you're reading this, it means something went wrong. I trust you to make it right. I hit post. It spread faster than I expected. Friends shared it. Strangers commented. Some just wrote, "Thank you." Others shared their own stories about uneven wills, about being the caretaker and still being forgotten, about mothers who couldn't speak until it was too late. One message stood out. It came from a nonprofit I didn't recognize, Carolina Legal Literacy Network. "Jenna, we read your post and were moved by your story. Would you be open to speaking at our upcoming forum on inheritance rights and family legal planning? We think your voice could help others." I read it 3 times before setting the phone down. I didn't know what I would say, but I knew I wanted to say something. Then, just as the sun dipped low and my apartment turned the color of quiet amber, a new email arrived from Joseph Linwood. Subject, Estate Folder, New Discovery. "Hi, Jenna. While re-reviewing your mother's estate file, I came across a handwritten note tucked between some older financial documents. It appears to be addressed to you. Would you like me to send it?" I sat still for a moment, my hand still on the mouse. My breath held. "Yes," I whispered, though there was no one there to hear me. I used to think justice would feel like fireworks. Turns out it feels like rosemary in the sun. The pot sat beside me on the rooftop ledge, its green sprigs swaying gently in the October breeze. I'd planted it a few weeks ago, not long after the settlement was finalized. The tag still stuck out from the soil, Rosmarinus officinalis, symbol of remembrance, clarity, and strength. Mom used to keep a rosemary plant on the kitchen windowsill. When I was little, I asked her why. "For clarity," she said. "Sometimes your mind's cloudy and your heart's louder than it should be. Rosemary helps sort them out." I hadn't believed her then. I think I do now. The sun was dipping low, casting gold across the brick buildings around me. Charleston was quieter from up here. No headlines, no comment threads, no whispers behind closed doors, just sky and stillness. Dylan never responded to the settlement. Not a word, no emails, no lawyer letters. Just a kind of silence that said more than anything he might have written. Russell sent one message. "I hope you're proud of yourself." That was it. No greeting, no signature. And in a way, I was. Not for what happened in court, but for what I didn't do. I didn't unravel. I didn't become who they painted me as. Gina came by that morning with 2 coffees and a box of cinnamon muffins from the market downtown. We ate them in the small corner of my kitchen that caught the sun around 10 o'clock. "You look like someone who slept through the night," she said, peeling back a muffin wrapper. "I almost did," I replied. "Woke up only once." Progress. She clinked her paper cup against mine. To peace, even the messy kind. A buzz pulled me back to the present. Vanessa's text. "Confirmed. You're on the speaker list for November. Topic: Navigating contested inheritance with grace." Thought it fit. I smiled. She had a dry wit I was only now beginning to appreciate. I didn't know exactly what I'd say. But I knew what I wouldn't. I wouldn't name names. I wouldn't air pain for applause. I'd talk about quiet courage, about how love doesn't always come wrapped in warmth, and how recognizing that doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you honest. Later that afternoon, I opened a padded envelope from Joseph Linwood. Inside was a single folded page, yellowed slightly at the edges. It was Mom's handwriting. Jenna, if love was quiet, I didn't always know how to express it. But I hope you felt it. Take care of the garden. It always blooms for the patient. I held the letter to my chest, closed my eyes, and let the words settle. I didn't need an apology. Not anymore. This was better. It was a note from someone who tried, and in her own way, reached me. That evening, I walked to the workshop venue downtown, a modest civic center with folding chairs and a podium that wobbled slightly. I wore a gray dress Mom once complimented and brought nothing but a printed outline and a pen I never used. When I stood to speak, my voice didn't shake. I didn't tell them about Dylan or Russell. I talked about fairness, about family and the silence it demands, about how choosing yourself isn't betrayal, it's recovery. They clapped when I finished. Some nodded. One woman dabbed at her eyes. I didn't stay long after, just enough to thank the organizers, gather my things, and slip out before the crowd thinned. I walked the rest of the way home. Cool air, quiet streets. Back on my rooftop, I poured a cup of herbal tea, kicked off my shoes, and settled beside the rosemary. I opened my phone, scrolled through my albums, and paused on one. A family beach photo from years ago. Everyone smiling. I remembered taking it, not being in it. I deleted it. Then I snapped a new photo, just the rooftop, the pot, the low sun. I posted it with one line, "This is enough." The phone buzzed minutes later. "Gina, I'm proud of you. You've rewritten your part in the story." I typed slowly. Me, still scared, but finally free. And this time, I meant it. Sitting beside that little pot of rosemary, I finally understood what Mom meant by clarity. It doesn't always come in big moments. It comes in stillness and choosing to stop shrinking just to keep the peace. Families are complicated, but silence shouldn't be the price of love. Sometimes, speaking up isn't about breaking things. It's about mending what was hidden too long. And healing, I've learned, doesn't need permission. It just needs truth. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear how you found your own voice or how you're still searching. You're not alone.